Salute, 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 ATP. It's your boy Ray. Shout out to all my subscribers. I hope you guys are doing well. If this is your first time tapping into this content, I encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit your bell icon so you're getting all these alerts when the content is dropping. Look, I'm going to be in and out like a robbery, man. What a crazy day it's been in the 147-pound weight class division, as information came out earlier today as Boots Ennis did an interview on YSM. Shout out to Mel over there at YSM. And with that exclusive interview, it was 3 minutes of a super hot fire, right? Super hot fire, as Boots Ennis announced that there was an attempt to make a unification bout between him and Brian Norman Jr. and that a contract or an offer for a contract was sent out and rejected by Brian Norman. Now, listen, miscommunications happen. This whole entire situation really highlighted what people might consider corruption in the boxing game. But just to say, a lot of times these fighters are trying to make these fights happen, and it's not them ducking each other. It's the politics around them that are playing out, right? So Brian Norman Jr., Sr. received an offer, well, the team, Senior and Junior, received an offer from the Boots Ennis team via Matchroom, I have to assume, in reference to putting a fight together. Unification title fight. We all know Boots Ennis is at 147 pounds, trying to unify and become an undisputed champion in that division. And this is amongst pressure from the whole entire boxing space. A lot of people want to see Boots move up to 154 and get into that conversation of what's going on up there. So many great fights that there is to be made, but Bozy and Boots have made it clear that their intentions are to unify and become undisputed in that weight class, then move up to 154 and attempt to do the same thing, right? Aiming at greatness. Who can't respect that? But Boots Ennis has always had a real difficult time getting these fights put together, and supposedly Eddie Hearn was going to be the key to that problem, right? We're going to fix that whole issue. He's going to focus all his energy. One of the best promoters in the world is going to focus all his energy in making sure that Boots becomes an undisputed champion and getting him in front of these title shots in front of the Stanionis, the Mario Barrioses, and of course Brian Norman Jr. So nonetheless, offers were sent out. Brian Norman Sr. responded to the offer and said, listen, man, we are definitely down. First of all, we're definitely down to make these fights happen. That's the first thing we need to understand. But the management team said, listen, yeah, we can make these fights happen. Let's just get a bit of a better offer. Let's go ahead and send a counter offer in. Nothing much. He said, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So supposedly, according to Boots, he was told that Brian Norman Jr. and Sr. rejected the offer. And you could tell even if you guys watch the interview, I'll refer you to the YSM interview. If you look at it, what you're going to find out is he was real disappointed. He looked like he was, in my opinion, it looked like he was ready to give up on the 147-pound weight class division, which, as messed up as it sounds, that he would think like that, and that was probably a stressful thing. There was a little joy in my heart, because I'm not going to lie to you, me as well as a lot of other boxing fans were really interested in seeing Boots make that move up to 154. Really want to see him get in those conversations with all those fighters up there, as 154 is starting to culminate to be a very exciting, action-packed, hard-hitting, probably one of the most exciting divisions coming together, right? When you think about Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, right? Sebastian Fundora, Tim Tszyu, Virgil Ortiz, the list goes on and on and on. Jamel Charlo, if he came out of his little hiatus. So the possibilities are endless in that division. You just want to see Boots Ennis, who's already a big 147-pounder, make his way up to 154. But I digress to say that the most important thing about this process is that somewhere between Brian Norman Sr.'s response to this offer and Boots Ennis is waiting on getting the correct information, somewhere in the middle, the waters got muddied, and the fight was, it would look like from the outside looking in that Matchroom pretty much declined the counter offer, which pretty much took away Boots Ennis' opportunity to become a unified champion. But the whole entire narrative that's getting pushed out by Boots Ennis is that these guys rejected the offer. And let's put it in layman's terms, something that you guys are probably way more familiar with, and say that it just looked like Brian Norman ducked Boots Ennis. Horrible look, right? Horrible look. Well, Brian Norman Sr. had to get in front of that situation. Thank God, as Mel from YSM reached out to Brian Norman Sr. and said, listen, man, this is the video I'm about to put out. Doesn't look good for you guys. It looks like you guys ducked. I don't know what you want to do, if you want to respond to that. And of course, Brian Norman Sr. jumped right in front of that situation and answered all questions. Let it be known that that was a lie. This is nowhere near the truth. They accepted the offer and explained what I explained a little bit earlier. So what's the highlight of this whole entire situation? At this point, what it looks like is there's somebody there's a boogeyman between Brian Norman's camp and Boots Ennis's camp that look like they pretty much sabotage this fight, right? Boots Ennis being somebody who's focused on unifying that division. And I would think that Eddie Hearn, as much as Eddie Hearn and Turkey Al-Sheik's been talking about this Terrence Crawford fight and even getting Boots to move up to 154, you would think the first priority on their mind would be to just pay whatever they have to pay to get him in front of these champions, turn him into a unified champion. That way, all they have to do is work on these other two champions, in Mario Barrios and Stanionis. But it looks like they didn't see the vested interest or the profits or whatever the reasons could have been to drive them to do that. But it was definitely some dishonesty there, as Bozy Ennis wasn't made abreast of the offer or how much the offer was going to be. Brian Norman Sr. communicated with Bozy Ennis, let him know not only the offer that they offered him, but also the counter offer that Brian Norman Sr. sent back. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions at this point. It's fair to say, and it's reasonable to say, that Matchroom I don't think Matchroom handled this situation in the way that Boots would have probably ideally wanted them to handle it. It looks like they kind of sabotaged him, to be honest with you. And Boots Ennis at this point has to have questions for Eddie Hearn, and want probably some clear answers as to why this fight is not being put together. Why am I fighting Karen Kukadajian, whatever his name is, a fighter who I've already fought before and was one of my most boring fights because this guy ran the whole entire night? Why would you guys even risk putting Boots back in the Wells Fargo Center in front of his people and having them fight a fight like that, a quote-unquote mandatory, when easily a unification title bout would go ahead and trump that mandatory fight, putting Boots in a position to once again blow up his profile, raise his market value, and pack out that stadium 2 times in a row. It would have just been a good look for Boots. Well, now that the information is all out there, everybody should be on the same page of what's going on. What do we hope for? We hope the writing on the wall is that Jerron Boots Ennis and Brian Norman Jr. and Sr. will be back in negotiations, that both Team Ennis and Team Norman will be back in negotiations, and hopefully we'll see a fight. They said as early as November 9th, as the Wells Fargo Center has already been secured, supposedly by Matchroom, to put Boots in there. Rumor was to put him in there against Karen Carr. You know who I'm talking about, to put him back in the ring with him. But hopefully we could see a Brian Norman Jr. Now listen, I'm gonna tell you guys straight up, my personal opinion is, if they are able to put this fight together, we already saw Virgil Ortiz and Serhii Bohachuk, which is a candidate for Fight of the Year, an exciting fight. But to see Boots and Brian Norman Jr., who's made a statement in a huge stop of Giovanni Santillan, right? Coming off of a no contest where he got elbowed, he got knocked on his tail for the first time, but it was considered a no contest because they both were cut so early in the fight. He made such a big comeback and such a big statement in the 147-pound weight class division by stopping Santillan in stunning fashion, right? Dominated him in his own game. Boxed him, stayed on the inside. Santillan is tough, a real puncher, and Brian Norman really just made a statement in that fight and put the whole entire division on notice that there's a new boogeyman in town. Heavy puncher sitting on his punches, and Boots Ennis, we don't even need to speak to his accolades because he's earned the respect of the whole boxing space. This guy's in the conversations of beating a Terrence Crawford if they would ever have a fight. A lot of people are picking him over Terrence Crawford, and even being competitive and defeating a lot of people 154, but Boots Ennis has yet to have a fighter stand in front of him that gets a 50-50 shot. And does Brian Norman check those boxes? Well, honestly, when you look at that performance combined by with Brian Norman Sr. today, shout out to Blue Blood, as we had a little conversation, an interview with Brian Norman Sr. It was about an hour long. We got so much information, guys. Go check out that Blue Blood episode where me and Blue Blood had that conversation with Sr. But Senior's real confident, believes that he'll be the puncher, he'll be the aggressor in this fight, that Boots Ennis would be the one who would have to make the space, establish the distance, that he would not be able to fight Brian Norman Jr. the same way he fought like David Avanesian or a lot of the other fighters that he fought, being that Boots is sitting at a 90%, right? About a 90% knockout ratio. I thought that was interesting, right? So I think that'd be amazing to see Boots Ennis actually have to box, and it will be a telling fight, a fight that Boots Ennis wants and needs under his belt, that would show the world who he is, and not only in that division, but who he is on a pound for pound conversation, right? Big fight for him. But you guys let me know, does this shine a bad light on Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, the way they coordinated this? Was this a protective custody situation where Eddie Hearn decided that he wanted to go ahead and protect Boots, or maybe even in my opinion, I think it's possible or reasonable to even argue, maybe force him up to 154, take away his undisputed, convince him that undisputed at 147 is not realistic. Let's get up in these bigger fights at 154. Let's get involved in the conversation of 154, where all the biggest fights and the biggest paydays are there. This is the division that Turki Al-Sheikh is interested in having Boots Ennis compete in. So let's get you up there. Let's get us all paid, right? Let Eddie Hearn get paid. Let Boots get paid. Everybody affiliated with it, because Turkey's willing to pay premium dollar to see Boots in the ring with the most competitive fights he can get. And let's be honest, most people don't think there's a lot of competitive fights for Boots Ennis at 147, except for maybe a Brian Norman Jr. So you guys let me know what you think. We need to be looking at Matchroom a little funny right now. We need to look at Eddie Hearn a little funny right now. Was this just a simple case of just a little bit of miscommunication? Maybe there wasn't enough time allocated by Boots to make a decision. Maybe he spoke too soon, being that this all happened over the past weekend, right? The offer was sent out, the counter offer was sent back. This was very recent. And in all honesty, Brian Norman Sr., if you take his word for it, which I have no reason not to, he pretty much was waiting on hearing a response from the Ennis team or Matchroom about the fight. Didn't even know the fight was off the table yet, right? It's going to be a very interesting to see develop, but it would be great because I think it would set 147 off and it would get Boots Ennis that one step closer to becoming an undisputed champion, and ultimately one step closer to moving up to 154, where we can see some really big fights. But let me know what you think. Put it in the comments. It's your boy Claymore Rain. It's the ATP Combat Media Show. Like I told you guys, this is the first time that you're going ahead and seeing this content. If it's something that tickles your fancy, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit your bell icon so you're getting alerts when all this content is dropping. We'll keep you up to date as this develops. And look, the channel's growing. I appreciate you guys. Shout out to Blue Blood. Catch me on Blue Blood as well on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Every week about 3:30, we'll be going up and breaking down boxing. And of course, at night, normally tonight I would have went live, but it's been a long day. I got things I got to do tomorrow. But normally Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night, we have the live here, open panels. We talk about boxing and everything going on in boxing. Really appreciate you guys. Stay blessed. Until the next time, at this point, we out.